This man managed to find himself in the future, but what he saw there was deeply disturbing. The year is 2067. Earth is plagued by abnormal heat and constant wildfires. Cities have turned into ash heaps, plants have gone extinct, and natural oxygen is gone. Only one last megacity remains, where people breathe with the help of synthetic oxygen. However, this leads to a disease known as consumption, and after some time, people die. Humanity faces extinction. Ethan White works in a tunnel with his partner Jude Matherson, ensuring the stable operation of a nuclear reactor. Returning home, Ethan watches the news. A strange bracelet with a red indicator is on his wrist. His wife, Xanta, approaches him, and he gifts her a new oxygen mask. She is delighted and begins to dance, but suddenly she coughs up blood. It becomes clear that Xanta is also sick with consumption. One day, Ethan is summoned by Regina Jackson, the head of particle research. Jude accompanies him. In her office, Regina informs Ethan that he might be able to save humanity. She leads him to a laboratory where his father, Richard White, once worked. But Ethan doesn't want to remember his father. In the lab, they show him a device called the Chronicle, capable of sending signals and objects to the future and even receiving responses back. The scientists explain that they recently sent a signal to check if anything exists on the other side. It turned out that there's a future 4 to 7 years ahead. How is that possible if humanity is supposed to disappear in just 20 years? This means someone found a way to save the world. Even more shocking is the received message, "Send Ethan White." However, Ethan is reluctant to venture into the unknown. Ethan returns to work and quarrels with Jude, who insists that he must go on the journey. We are shown a flashback. A young Ethan celebrates his 8th birthday. His father gives him a strange box, into which Ethan inserts his hand. The same bracelet with a red indicator is attached to his wrist. After this, his father leaves, later calling Ethan's mother and asking her to take him outside. There, they are attacked, resulting in his mother's death. Jude saves Ethan. At home, Xanta persuades Ethan to go to the future to find a way to save humanity. Eventually, he agrees. He leaves behind a metal flower with the inscription, "I will find a way to come back to you." Ethan arrives at the lab, ready for the journey. He is fitted with a special suit and given a device named Archie, which is supposed to assist him. Regina promises to monitor his vital signs. Then it happens. Ethan feels himself flying and then crashes to the ground. His suit catches fire, but he manages to remove it before it explodes. Coming to his senses, Ethan sees a habitable environment resembling a jungle around him. It seems people truly found a cure for consumption and saved the planet. However, no living soul is in sight. Ethan activates Archie and sets off to look for signs of life. After venturing deeper into the jungle, he finds a skeleton with a hole in the skull. On the remnants of the clothing, Ethan sees his own name, and on the skeleton's wrist is the same bracelet, but with a green indicator. Losing all hope, Ethan records a video message. "Looks like I'm going to die here." He continues to search the skeleton and finds an old but still functional Archie. Activating it, he hears fragments of messages that reveal the future is under threat of attack. Ethan is horrified by this news. He wanders through the jungle but cannot find anyone alive. Night falls. Ethan struggles to start a fire. Starving, he finds a bush with some berries that Archie has no data about. Despite this, Ethan eats them, which causes him to experience hallucinations and lose consciousness. When he regains consciousness, Jude is by his side. It turns out that in 2067, Regina noticed elevated toxin levels in Ethan's blood and sent Jude to the future to administer an antidote and save his friend. Ethan shows Jude the skeleton he found, but Jude tries to convince him that those are not his remains. At that moment, Archie detects a signal, and the partners discover a strange bunker. They enter and find a control panel. Ethan activates it, and spikes on his bracelet pierce his hand. The panel displays a message, "Access granted," and the indicator on the bracelet lights up green. When the lights turn on, the room reveals the Chronicle, connecting them to the year 2067. A countdown timer appears, indicating that the portal will activate in 4 hours. Jude is excited that they will be able to return home, but Ethan is puzzled by the empty bunker. He's convinced the skeleton with a hole in the head belongs to him, sensing something is terribly wrong. Jude becomes visibly nervous. Ethan accesses archival recordings from the Chronicle and sees a hologram of his father, Richard White. Richard explains that the Chronicle sends requests to the future in hopes of saving humanity from extinction. He reveals that they received a response from the year 2474, insisting on sending Ethan White. Regina appears in the recording, intending to send something to the future, but it becomes clear that a malfunction occurred in 2474. At that moment, the hologram disappears. Ethan and Jude realize that there has been a power failure at the nuclear reactor. Ethan is confused. Who repaired the reactor? Who sent the message to the past? Where are all the people? Is there even a cure for the plague? And why was Jude specifically chosen to be sent? They decide to search the area again. Approaching the edge of the jungle, they see the ruins of the oxygen plant in the same city they once lived in. Everything is overgrown with lush greenery. Inside the city, Ethan finds several remains and realizes that no cure was ever found. Humanity failed to survive, and after their disappearance, the planet restored itself because no one was there to destroy it anymore. Ethan discovers a classroom where Xanthi used to teach. There he finds the remains of his beloved wife and the same metallic flower with the inscription, "I will find a way back to you." On it is a short message, "Too bad you never returned." Ethan blames himself for leaving Xanthi. Jude responds, "Maybe it's for the better. None of them feel pain anymore." It was the same phrase Ethan had heard in Archie's recordings from the future. Ethan asks Archie to replay the archival recordings. Hearing them, a frightened Jude pulls out a weapon and points it at his friend. Ethan assumes Jude intends to kill him, but Jude doesn't fire. Instead, he insists that Ethan must return and repair the broken reactor. The men return to the control room and realize they need to redirect power. Their first attempt fails, and the doors begin to close. Jude holds them open while Ethan realizes he must switch a backup lever. Deciding to sacrifice himself, Ethan pushes Jude out of the room and pulls the necessary lever. The reactor's operation is restored, and everything returns to normal. However, Jude refuses to leave Ethan and saves him. They return to the control station and learn that there are 37 minutes left until the system's activation, with no critical malfunctions. Relieved, Jude wants to rest, but Ethan cannot calm down. He opens one of the doors and sees the same skeletal remains that resemble his own. Ethan transfers parts from the old Archie into the new one, and in front of Jude, plays the last video recording. In the footage, the heroes are arguing, and Jude points a weapon at Ethan's forehead. A gunshot is heard. The men start quarreling again. Jude insists that the recording is a lie, while Ethan runs through the bunker, desperately hoping to find a cure for the plague. Finding nothing, he decides to continue viewing the archival recordings from the Chronicle. Jude tries to stop him, but Ethan locks him out and sits down to watch the recording alone. In the footage, Richard White confesses that all his work was solely focused on saving Ethan. He decided to send his son to the future, believing that only there could Ethan live longer. The recording continues with Regina and a young Jude entering the room. Richard realizes that Regina doesn't care about any cure. She simply wants to escape to the future with a small group of chosen people. Richard reveals that he programmed the system so that only Ethan could activate it, but Regina has her own cunning plan. She kills the scientist and orders Jude to befriend Ethan so he could eventually send him to the future and activate the portal. Meanwhile, Jude escapes from the locked room and tries to convince Ethan that the past cannot be saved. They have a heated argument. Ethan attempts to destroy the portal, and Jude attacks him with a weapon. However, instead of killing Ethan, Jude shoots himself. Simultaneously, in 2067, a group of chosen people is preparing to travel to the future. Everyone is waiting for Ethan's return. Regina orders one of the guards to kill Ethan as soon as he appears in the lab. That explains why Ethan found his own remains in the future. However, instead of Ethan, plants from the future arrive in the lab, along with Archie, who plays a recording of Richard. Following this, Ethan sends a message to the past. Send Ethan White, breaks the connection, and destroys the Chronicle. Xanthi turns on the TV and learns that after receiving the video, Regina was arrested, and several plant species were found in her company's possession. This means humanity now has a chance for survival. Xanthi receives a living flower as a gift. In 2474, Ethan buries Jude and places a metal flower by his grave. Strangely, the message from Xanthi is no longer on it. Turning his head, he sees a living butterfly. Ethan runs to the bunker and discovers that his skeleton has vanished. He rushes to the cliff at the edge of the jungle and sees a futuristic city below. Humanity has survived.